wherever you are and however you are listening, thank you so much for being back with us on another episode of Winning the Moment. Today, I have Dre Baldwin, and if you're a fan of basketball, you probably know him. He was one of the entrepreneurs of basketball on YouTube. He actually wrote the book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, that people are still using today to figure out how to be a professional athlete overseas. And his podcast, Work on Your Game, has over 7.5 million downloads. He is absolutely amazing. His answers are incredible, and his story's even better. Be sure to like and subscribe, and most importantly, enjoy the episode. Thank you for being back with us on another episode of Winning the Moment. Today is exciting. I've got Dre Baldwin from Work on Your Game. His podcast has over 7.5 million downloads. So I think I'll probably be learning along with you guys today. But Dre, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me on, Cody. Excited for this conversation.
It was wild doing some of like the due diligence to get you on the podcast today. And it was like everything that I read was like, I'd like gasp out loud audibly. You got 4 TED Talks. That's pretty wild. I felt good and I got 1. And then I saw 2 of them on your website and I was like, oh my gosh, he has 2. And then as I was reading some more stuff, I was like, oh, actually you've done 4 of them. And then of course, 7.5 million downloads is unreal. How long have you been doing your Work on Your Game podcast?
The podcast started in 2016. So
okay,
8
so
years.
That's nice. I know that it's a long game, you know, and everyone's got a
Yes.
podcast now. I mean, there's plenty of stats out there about
That's
that. In
Yeah.
fact, you probably know this, but if you've done 21 episodes, you're in the top 1% of all podcasters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a big graveyard of podcasts that used to exist. You're right.
no doubt about it. So that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
cool to hear. How often do you put your episode out?
Every single day.
Oh my gosh, you do one every day.
Every day. It's a solo show, so it's easier. You don't have to
Yeah.
coordinate with guests. But yeah, and it also allows you to batch. So if I want to record 5 episodes in a day, I can do it.
Oh, sure. And how long are your episodes usually?
About 20, 30 minutes a piece.
Wow, that's amazing. I have to go and listen to those. So what I'd love to do is kind of start in the beginning. So obviously on the Winning the Moment podcast, it's about finding success for yourself. And it definitely has sports themes because like you, I grew up playing sports and I wasn't naturally good at any of them, right? Like I had to work really hard to be able to be good. And so when I was, you know, playing in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade and stuff, like I was not good. I can remember being out my driveway. I grew up in Wyoming. And I would have like, I'd just have to shovel the snow off and I'd have a jacket on and gloves and I was getting my shots up, you know? And so to read your story, that you didn't make the varsity team for 3 years until you finally did. And then, but I knew you were a professional basketball player. So I was like, man, that's amazing. So if you want to take us back to like what that time was like and is that where your drive kind of started?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that the story ended well makes it sound great, but nobody was predicting me to be a pro basketball player when it was happening.
No
Right?
kidding.
So I'm just not making the team, and people are looking at me like, probably even my own family. My parents are probably looking like, all right, let's let him get this out of his system. Then eventually he's going to go on to something he actually has a chance at, which probably ain't basketball. So for me, I knew I had started late. I didn't get to basketball until around age 14. I tried a bunch of other sports before that, but basketball was the one that I finally settled on. So knowing that I had started late and subconsciously I figured I'm still getting better while a lot of my peers were kind of hitting their peaks by the time we were 17, 18, 19 years of age. But I felt like I was still improving. So I was just dumb enough, Cody, to keep trying. So getting out of high school after barely playing, walked on to play college basketball at a D3 school, which you know is the 3rd tier of college sports, not really a level that produces pros. And around that time, I was continually still feeling myself getting better. And once I could see that just by going to the park, I didn't have anybody teaching me. Nobody was showing me, here's how you practice, here's what to do. And this is pre-Instagram, pre-YouTube days. So it's not like I'm getting this off the internet. I just saw that me showing up to the gym and just randomly trying stuff and continuing to practice was leading to what felt like tangible results for me. And that's when I realized that if I just keep showing up, I kind of have a competitive advantage because I noticed that a lot of my peers just didn't have that level of discipline and consistency. As far as the drive, yes, I do think it was a combination of the physicality of sports, being a young male, and the competitiveness of sports because everybody cannot win. I think those two combined with the fact that, there are a bunch of my peers, laughing at me. You tried to make the team, you didn't make it. And that I think there's something in me. There's actually one of the flaws in my character is that I'm competitive. I want to get revenge, if you want to say it that way. I just want to get retaliation, not against anybody specifically, but against the situation. So all of those things combined, I think, led to me pushing forward with sports.
What's amazing is you talked about like just showing up, and that kind of goes back to your podcast, right? Of how many people don't make it past 21. So it's like, if you just keep showing up like you have been, you're eventually going to find that success, and that led to 7.5 million downloads. But I wonder, like, how did you ever end up being a professional? If even at, I think I read your D3, you didn't actually really play till your senior year. Is that right?
Well, in college I played, but I didn't. I didn't. That was in high school. That I played to my senior year. So in college I played, but it's not like I set the world on fire. And even if I had, it's at the D3 level. So who cares?
Yeah.
Right. So I was just playing in a place that nobody cares about what you do at that level anyway.
So did you always have a dream to be a professional athlete? Was that part of that pursuit, or where did that come from? Because obviously you had lots of obstacles. So I'm curious how you went from the D3 and how did you make it into a pro team overseas?
Great question. So my first inkling that I could try to be a professional athlete, I don't know if I would even call it a dream, but the first time I could try was probably around age 16, that I thought, okay, maybe this is the path that I can take. I can become a basketball player. Now, you had to understand how delusional I had to be to even entertain this thought, because at this point I'm in high school, not even on the high school basketball team.
Right.
But I'm thinking about, I'm what's the word? Deconstructing the path. Given this is my year, I'm graduating high school. If I did 4 years of college, I'm thinking, all right, the 2004 NBA draft is when I'm going to get drafted. And I'm not even on a high school team. So that's when I started thinking about it. But then playing the 1 year of high school, playing in college, I could still feel myself getting better. But by the time I got closer to graduating from college, it was obvious that I probably wasn't going to get drafted by the New York Knicks. So I was lucky enough to have a teammate who actually had some friends who did play overseas basketball. So he's the one who kind of put me onto the concept. Okay, well, you can play overseas. And I know some people who play overseas. Here's the things that they had to do to get their opportunities. They had to have you can put a profile. Here's a website. There was one website back then about overseas basketball that you could get, at least see what was happening. It's like a news website. And it also listed things like exposure camps. An exposure camp, for those who don't know, is like a job fair for athletes. So if you're trying to get a job playing sports, but nobody's offering you one, you can go to an exposure camp, which is a paid event to attend. You pay to attend the event. You play your sport. You don't just hand out your resume. You play a sport. And if you're impressive to someone, maybe that can lead to your next opportunity. So it's similar to a casting call for acting, same type of thing. And my teammate knew about this stuff. So he's the one who kind of bent my ear to the concept. And that was my pathway to get in. So I graduated college in 2004. Didn't play my first year out of school. Tried to, but there were no takers. 2005, I went to one of these exposure camps. It was a $250 entry fee. So it wasn't a ton of money, but that was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
College graduate with no money. And $250, played pretty well at this event. It was only 2 days long. From there, I got a good scouting report and I got the footage. And I started cold calling, Cody, basketball agents, because I knew I needed an agent to get an opportunity to play pro, because I don't know anybody overseas. I've barely been out of the state of Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia, PA. Let alone have I been out of the country. So I don't know anybody over there. They don't know me. How do I connect? So I realized that the agents were the go-between. So you can have an agent who knows you and he knows the teams over there. They can market and sell you to get on the team. So my next job was to go find an agent. Now, this is a little bit backwards, Cody, because most athletes, if you're really good and you're pro level, the agents are calling you and they're saying, hey, I would like to represent you, because agent wants to represent a player, because if the player makes money, the agent makes money. You get a percentage of the contract. But no agents were looking for me, because there was no one who was saying, hey, this guy, Dre Baldwin, he's going to be a pro. You should sign him so you can make some money. Nobody was thinking that. So I had to sell them on the concept that I was pro material. So I called about 60 basketball agents, cold call basketball agents. If I could just find their phone number on the internet, I called them. So internet did exist in 2005. It wasn't anything like it is now, but it existed. Out of those 60 who I called, I got in touch with 20. They said, send me what you have. So I sent them my footage. Now, this was not a link that I sent via email. This was a VHS tape. Cody, I don't know if you remember those. Yeah. So I had a VHS. That's the tape that you got from the exposure camp. They mailed you a VHS tape of your games.
Wow.
So I took that footage and I had at home, I had a double-decker VCR. So any millennials listening to this, you don't know what these things are, you ask your parents or you Google it, VCR, VHS tape. And I would make copies of the master footage because I couldn't give away the master tape. I would make copies of the tape and I would mail them out in bubble mailers to the agents who told me, hey, let me see what you got. Let me see if you're actually as good as you say you are. They could see the link to my scouting report, but the footage, they had to get the actual footage. So I mailed that to 20 agents on my own dime, which is, again, was a significant cost for me because I'm working at Foot Locker at this time. And of those 20 agents, one of them I was able to get back in touch with on the follow-up. And he said, I will represent you. So that agent became my representative. He got me my first contract. That was in Kaunas, Lithuania in late summer of 2005. So that's how I got into the pro basketball game.
Man, that's amazing. They just last week they went and showed NFL players, like rookies, of a VHS and asked them if they knew what it was, and none of them even knew.
Most of them don't know what it is.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I can remember actually LeBron James's first televised high school game. I recorded on a VHS.
Yeah.
Because I thought like, oh, I'll have this. It'll be cool, you know? And,
right.
But that doesn't really seem that long ago. That's because, I mean, I graduated high school in 2005. So it's like, I don't like thinking that that's so long ago, but that's amazing. I mean, what a process. So I'm curious, in 2005, being a professional athlete, was that enough to support you, like financially? Did you earn enough money, or did you have to have a regular job also at the same time?
Well, no and no. So it wasn't enough to support me to where I could retire after the season was over.
Sure.
It was enough that I didn't do anything else while I was playing, because you got to understand, when you're playing pro basketball overseas, you are literally over there.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can go get a job in Kaunas at a coffee shop. I can't speak the language.
Yeah.
So you are playing basketball, you're getting paid. They pay for all of your living expenses. They're covered. So your money is basically, you do whatever you want with it, because you don't need it. You're not paying for an apartment. You're not paying for the internet. You're not paying taxes. You're not paying insurance. You're not paying for any of those things there. They cover everything financially. And that money that you make, you could send it back home if you want to. You don't really need it for anything unless you want to go party or something like that. So that's the situation, at least when I first started.
And when you wrote your book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, where at in that 9-year journey did that book come about?
About 2012, 13-ish, maybe 14.
So after you've been in it for a while.
Because, so what happened there was I was starting to play overseas, and at the same time, I took that VHS tape and I put the footage, I got it transferred to a digital data CD, and I put the footage on YouTube. So that's where I started to get known on the internet. Okay. And for the most part, my first 5 years online, it was just basketball stuff, just playing basketball on the court. So a lot of ball players came to know who I was, and they found out that I was playing overseas. They found out about this background that I've just shared with you, high school, college, to playing overseas. Even though nobody was looking for me on the internet, they just happened to find this random guy making YouTube videos. And I started to build this audience, again, just straight grassroots of, hey, if you want to learn basketball, go on YouTube and look up this dude, Dre Baldwin. So I had all these ball players follow me. And once they knew I played overseas, they would ask more questions about it, because there were a lot of high school players who wanted to finally make the high school team, high school players who wanted to play in college, who wanted to walk on like I did, and college players who wanted to play pro like I did. So there were players at all these different levels who wanted to ascend the same way that I had ascended. So I started writing about it on my blog. So I would write blog posts about overseas basketball just to help people understand how it works and all these things, because overseas basketball is not like, Cody, it's not like being a doctor or a lawyer where all the requirements and the steps that you have to follow are all laid out and documented. It was not like that. It's still not like that to this day. Anything you find about overseas basketball, there are a lot of people talking about it these days, but they all got their initial information from me. Now, I was the first one writing about this stuff. And then when self-publishing became a thing, that's when I started to write. I started to put more of my material in books. And Overseas Basketball Blueprint is really a compilation of a bunch of articles I had written about overseas basketball on my website, on my blog. Then I just put them all together into a book and put it out as the blueprint. And it is still, to this day, the blueprint if you want to play ball overseas, if you haven't played anywhere significant in college specifically. But we even have players who have played Division I ball who they've come into my world saying, hey, I'm thinking about this. I got this offer. What do you think? So all different levels of players have come through because of that.
Wow. And was that the first book you wrote then?
No, that was book maybe number 6.
Yeah, because I saw you've written 31 books.
Yeah, is technically right? 35 today, but
35. That's great. Yeah. That's wild. So were you always a writer? I mean, if you had a website and a blog post, then is that like a passion of yours? Has writing always been a thing you enjoyed doing?
Yes, that's a good observation. I've always been a writer. So my mother's an educator. So she had my sister and I reading and writing from a very young age. So we
Okay.
kind of had a head start by the time we got to school. And writing was actually the first thing I was doing on the internet. I had a blog online before I was on YouTube, but my blog didn't blow up. It's not like I had a whole bunch of fans from my blog. I had no fans. I got all my fans from YouTube.
Yeah.
And then once they started following me, a lot of athletes, and I can say this as an athlete, a lot of athletes do not read, but because they like me and I was writing stuff, they would read my stuff. So
Okay.
I've had so many basketball players come to me and say, Dre, I don't read books at all, but I read your book. So I turn a lot of athletes into writing just because of that, because I'm into writing.
And do all of those 35 books, are they all about sports and your story, or is there a whole multitude of different topics that you cover in those?
Yeah, actually, none of them is about my story except one. So my first ever book is called Buy a Game. And if you're on video, is that book right there above me right
Okay.
there. That's Buy a Game. That was my first ever book. And that one's just telling a story from my high school years all the way up through my college years, just about basketball. That's the only book of mine that's a narrative. The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, actually, you can see that too. It's the blue book right there.
Okay.
Overseas Basketball Blueprint is basically a how-to guide. If you
Yeah.
want to play basketball overseas, here are the things you need to understand. Here's what you need to do. Here's the mistakes you need to avoid. That is a how-to. All the rest of my books are personal and professional development is, I guess, the category you would put it in, but none of them is a storybook. I use anecdotes, of course, from my own experiences
Sure.
to illustrate my points, but my books are much more of I'm kind of like a professor. And that's
Got it.
how I would describe my style when it comes to writing, speaking, and teaching.
And so you got a degree from Penn State, is that right?
Yes, I do.
And so what was your degree in?
Business with a focus in
Okay.
management and marketing. And, it's funny, Cody, when people ask me that question, I tell them I have a degree in business management and marketing. They say, oh, well, it was perfect for what you do for a living. Technically, yes, you can say that. I guess you can say I'm a success story of the educational system, but nothing that I learned in college contributes to anything that I do as an entrepreneur.
That's funny. I mean, that happens quite a bit. That's kind of
Yeah.
seems to be the theme. I'm curious. You said so over there. Obviously, you didn't speak the language. How did that work for coaches and your morale with your teammates? What was
Yeah.
that like if you couldn't communicate with them?
That's a great question. So sometimes you have coaches overseas who have been in America and they can speak fluent English.
Okay.
I would say about half the places I played, there was a coach who there was one team I played on when I was in Germany. The coach was actually a black guy from Texas. He played overseas. He was a little bit older than me. He retired from playing. He became a coach. So the coach was a black guy from America. The first team I played on in Lithuania, this guy was complete Lithuanian. He spoke zero English. So another guy had to come to practice every day. And I was not the only American on the team. He would come to practice and the coach would say something and he would interpret what the coach said. And then he would give me like the shorthand of what the coach said. And when I was in Montenegro, same thing. Coach didn't speak English, and a couple of my teammates could speak both the local language and they could speak English. So they would basically translate what he was saying. The good thing about playing for a coach where you don't speak the same language as a coach is that you can often pretend that you don't know what he said when you don't do what he said. So you could do that a few times playing overseas. But then other teams I was on, I played for several coaches who were like, they were well traveled. So a lot of people in Europe, especially if they're under the age of maybe 50, especially these days, they can speak English because American culture is very influential across the world, especially in basketball. So I dealt with a lot of coaches who were bilingual. They could not even bilingual, but multilingual. They could speak a lot of different languages and they spoke English perfectly.
And would you say that your mix of teams, was it a fair mix of like Americans and foreigners, or were you?
Oh, no.
No.
So
I
many
guess because
times
you were doing it in
overseas,
the beginning.
say that again.
You were doing it in the beginning, like you were part of like that. I mean, you wrote the book on the blueprint, so people didn't have the blueprint yet to be there, right? So,
Yeah. Yes. And in different countries, there are different rules. So every country has its own rules. So a lot of people don't understand what overseas basketball is. Not one big league of quote unquote overseas. Like the United States has the NBA. France has their own set of leagues. Spain has leagues. Italy have their own leagues. And these leagues have nothing to do with each other. So what France is doing in their league, Italy does not care and they don't pay attention to what France is doing.
sure.
Only they care about what's happening in their country. So each country has their own sets of rules and parameters for how you deal with what they will call us is import players, because we are literally imported goods coming into the country.
Yeah.
Same way that in the United States, if you're Toyota and you're importing cars, there's laws that you have to follow based on those imports.
Yeah.
So we are considered imports. So in certain countries, there are rules. So let's say a country like Germany, for example, I've seen teams in Germany in certain leagues where you could have 8 Americans on the team. And I saw that. There are 8 Americans on the team in Germany. But there are other leagues where you can only have 1 American on the team, only 1. And if you already have 1 and you want to bring another one, you have to fire the one you have to replace them with the new one. You can't have 2. So those are rules they have in place. And also, some teams are limited just by their resources. So a team might say, I talked to teams when I was trying to get myself signed at different times. They said, we like you and we would love to have you on our team, but we simply do not have the resources to bring you in. We can't pay for a flight for you. We don't have a place for you to live, and we couldn't pay the salary that you're expecting. So even though we love to have you, if you want to come over here and play for free, you can do it, but we can't pay you. So sometimes it depends on the resources of the team, but in many leagues, they put a limit on it so that one team, let's say they have an owner with very deep pockets, he can't just go hire a bunch of really great American players and now they're just beating everybody else in the league because other teams don't have the same amount of money. So every league has different rules for that.
That makes sense. And what, of all the places you played at internationally, where was your favorite place that you lived?
Favorite place to live
would
be Herceg Novi, Montenegro. So anyone who's never been there, Herceg Novi is basically a resort / destination town that people who just travel, they know that area. They will actually go there and stay on vacation. It's that nice of a place. It's right on the water, which is the Bay of Kotor, which leads into the Mediterranean through another channel. But it's right there on the water. Beautiful place. They call it flats over there. We call it apartments. But out of my flat, you look out the window, you can see the water right there. And because it's right on the water, it doesn't get super cold. So even in the winter, the coldest you got was about 50 degrees. Beautiful place.
Did you ever think about staying international, like long term? Obviously, we talked, you live in Miami now, but did you ever think like, oh, maybe I'll just stay over here in any of the places?
And just build a life there outside of basketball?
Mm-hmm.
No, I never seriously considered that.
Yeah.
I would stay there for basketball. If a team just said, hey, we'll sign you to a 3-year contract, stay for 3 years, I would have did that.
Sure.
But as far as like not living in the United States of America, no, I never seriously considered that.
What were the contracts like? Did you ever have a multi-year deal, or was it always kind of like season to season?
Most overseas contracts are season to season. Almost everybody, even the highest players in overseas ball, is season by season. And also, you don't even get the whole season all the time. Like you can get fired in the middle of the season if you're not playing well enough. So it's not, a lot of people watch the NBA and they think that if you go overseas, it's a similar structure, but it's not. Again, overseas teams do not follow an NBA structure. So when you see an NBA player getting a contract for 6 years, there are no 6-year contracts overseas, not even for the coaches.
Wow. And so you played for 9 years. When your 9 years was up, was it a decision that you made that you're ready to transition your focus, or was it just you no longer had the opportunities to be on teams?
That's a great question. So I tell people there's only 3 reasons players stop playing. 1 is nobody's calling. Number 2, you physically can't play anymore. Number 3, you just get tired of doing the work. So for me, it was I got tired of doing the work. So I could have continued to play. I was only 30. I'm 42 years of age now. So I stopped playing when I was 33. So I could have kept playing. I just didn't want to anymore because I saw a lot of opportunity for myself in business. And I saw more opportunity as far as how I could grow. There's more ways to grow as a business person. There was ways to grow as a basketball player. And at the same time, I didn't want to leave the country again as well, because a lot of people don't consider this when you're looking at overseas basketball players. If you're planning on living in America and you're a single man or a single woman, and every person you meet, they're saying, oh, you play basketball. That's cool. Where do you play? I'll play this place. Are you going to play somewhere else? Yeah. And I would talk to girls. I'll go on dates with women and they would say, well, you play overseas. When do you go? Where's the next place you're going? And when are you coming back? And I could tell by the answers that I gave, they were like, okay, I can see the lights go off. Like, okay, this guy, there's no future with this guy. Sure. Because he's not even going to be around. Yeah, so you have to consider that as well. And a lot of people don't think about that stuff. So for me, to answer your question finally, I decided that I was going to stop playing because I wanted to get into possibly building a family and building a long-term relationship. I had opportunities in business. And I had done everything I wanted to do in basketball. I didn't really have anything else I needed to do other than what I'd done up to that point.
That's amazing. So when you came back, has the work on your game been something that's kind of been a part of your story since the beginning as you were playing sports and writing your books? And what is it now? Like what exactly is work on your game?
Yeah, so work on your game. I first said the phrase in 2009. So that's when I started kind of using the phrase work on your
Okay.
game. But I'd always been working on my game. So what work on your game is now, we focus on three specific things: high level performance done consistently to produce results. That's it. Performance, consistency, results. And the foundations of that are mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. So those four things help us lead to the outcomes: performance, consistency, and results. That's what work on your game is all about.
And so you had said you had a client called right before our podcast. So is that like
Yeah.
consulting work that you're doing at them, like an accountability coach, helping them get to the places that they want to go?
Yeah. So consulting work, speaking. We have a whole university where we do coaching, and our coaching it's based on both personal and professional. So a lot of people we work with, they want some help with some personal stuff, but also with some business stuff. And depending on the day of the week, we could be having a whole conversation about personal life things or a whole conversation about business stuff. So anything that I've ever done successfully, I have people who I coach on doing those exact same things.
Okay, I love that. And now I kind of want to talk about your TED Talks a little bit. So I loved your titles. Too much confidence is not your problem. And I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but do you want to elaborate on kind of the premise of that TED Talk?
Yeah, so that one is one that I wanted to do for a long time because that concept of confidence is a big thing that everybody wants. Everyone actually, I mentioned I was on a client call. We were talking about confidence right before we got off the call. Even back when I was in my basketball days, a lot of players would ask me questions about confidence. And then once I started putting myself out online, a lot of non-athletes would ask me questions about confidence. So it's the number one internal trait that everybody wants more of is confidence. And I would often have people say, well, Dre, yeah, I want to be confident, but I don't want to be too confident. I would hear that so often. And it got me thinking, like, do people really think that they can make a mistake by being too confident? And one of the metaphors that I don't think I said it in that talk, but maybe I did, was that it was like I knew this girl once and she was asking me if I could show her around the gym and show her how to use certain equipment so she could work out by herself. And I said, sure, I will. And she said, well, before we do that, Dre, let me remind you or warn you, I don't want to be like one of those big gym girls who has all those muscles and like the bodybuilder girls. She said, I don't want to, her phrase was, I don't want to look like a man by having all these muscles. And I said to her, well, how about you learn actually how to get to the gym first and go 2 days in a row before you worry about having too many muscles. And it's the same, it is the same metaphor, Cody, that I give to people when it comes to confidence. People are like, well, I don't want to be too confident. I'm like, you don't even know what it feels like to be normal confident, let alone too confident. So how about we get that first? How about you stop beating yourself up and talking yourself down and talking yourself out of opportunities every day the way you normally do before you worry about going too far in other directions? Kind of like somebody's just driving their car with the emergency brake on. They're saying, well, I don't want to go too fast. Well, how about we release the brake first? Just let the car cruise before we worry about it going too fast. So that was the whole concept of that talk, that nobody has a problem having too much confidence. I've yet to see anyone really get in trouble for being too confident. And if it does happen, it's like once out of every 100 things you do. And people seem to, and this is the whole point of that talk, Cody, and I've talked about this many other times, is that people seem to hold themselves back. Like, I don't want to go too far in this direction, while their issue is they're actually too far in the other direction. You're worrying about a problem that you don't even have. So that's what that talk is about.
I love that. I think that's something that people run into all the time is they're
Yes.
more worried about their future problems and they're not even present in
That
the
they
moment.
don't even have.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so the other TED Talk I saw was how to be confident when you're not. Does that stem from like you not making the team and things like that when you were younger?
Well, that one actually kind of sort of does come from that, because where it came from and we used in that talk, I don't know if you saw it, in that talk is the only one in which I use any kind of visual aids like slides. I hate using slides, but they insisted it would be a good idea that if I took some of the comments that people had posted on YouTube over the years around confidence, it would kind of add credence to the point that I was making, because the talk was based around a lot of basketball players were asking me questions about confidence, and I used it in the talk, and it actually worked out pretty well. So that one came from all the athletes who have been asking me questions about confidence over the years. Dre, I have no confidence. How can I be confident? And that's when I built that talk. And that's probably, I think, I haven't checked the numbers recently, but I think my most popular talk is that one.
I'm surprised to hear that so many athletes are asking you about confidence or saying that they're not confident, because that's just surprising to me.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like if you are an athlete, then you inherently already have something to be confident about, that thing that you're doing.
My experience is the exact opposite.
Wow.
Most athletes have, I find Actually, when it comes to any type of performer, athletes, entertainers, professional speakers, models, is that the performers actually have the least confidence of anybody because they know that they're going to be watched. And what they're comparing themselves is not to the people in the audience who can't do what they do, because maybe that's why you look at it that way, because the people in the audience can't play basketball like me. But
Yeah.
people in the audience are not your competition. They're looking at you, they're evaluating you because you're the one on the stage. So what I find is the performers project onto the people in the audience that the people in the audience are looking at them like, you're supposed to be this, this, and this. And then they're thinking to themselves, am I this, this, and this? No, I'm not. So now I don't believe in myself because I know they're going to notice that I'm not that good. I'm going to get exposed the second that I get out there on that stage. So that's what I find, that a lot of performers have that performance anxiety and that lack of confidence, because they expect that the audience expects them to be at this level, but they're only at this level. The audience expects a level 10, but they're only on level 4. They're like, damn, I'm about to get exposed as soon as I get on the stage. I don't want to go on the stage. So they don't want to get out there and perform. So that's what I find with a whole lot of athletes, and also with performers. As with any other person, they tend to think too much about what other people are thinking, how other people are judging them. How do I measure up against this guy or this girl or whoever? So these are common issues that happen with all human beings. And because of my superpower, Cody, is just my ability to take things that people make very complex, and I can break it down and make it simple. And that's what I did with confidence for athletes. And then when I realized that people who didn't play sports had the same problem, that's when I saw the value in giving it to an audience of people who may not be basketball players.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because even if I think about like when I go to do my talks, I'm always nervous before. And it's this funny conundrum, right? Because I'm like, why am I nervous? One, I'm talking about something that I believe and I made up. So it's like no one can even fact check me on it because it's my opinion,
Exactly.
And secondly, it's not like they sent me out on this task and I'm supposed to, like do a book report on this thing. It's like, it's my message. So whatever I say, it's my message. It's authentically true. But yet I still have that sense of anxiety or fear. But really, you're probably spot on that I'm thinking of like great speakers I've seen. And it's like,
Right.
I want to be as good as them for this audience. But all the audience is thinking is who's in front of me right now.
Right. And they're already predestined most of the time as professional speakers. Usually you're speaking to a welcoming audience. They want to hear us. They already know about us before. They read your bio in a little pamphlet. They know that you're coming. Excuse me. And they're looking forward to what it is that you have to say. And one of the key things for performers, people who are in the public eye, is that a lack of confidence already betrays that you're not good. And if you don't believe in yourself, people can read that. They can feel it coming off of you. While on the flip side, when you truly believe in yourself, people can feel that as well. And you might not even be that good. Like, you can be saying a whole bunch of nonsense, but if you believe in yourself, people will listen to it and they'll be nodding their head like, wow, that's amazing. Right? It doesn't even matter what you say. So a lot of, as the saying goes, or not the saying, but what we know, the majority of communication is nonverbal. So it's not even what you do or what you say, is how you do it and how you say it that causes people to either believe you or not believe you.
And how do you help your clients with that confidence? Like, what are some things that you can do to help? Like, if there's someone listening to this episode right now, driving in their car, and they're like, I need more confidence. Anything that you have that you could give them that might help them get in the right direction?
Excellent question. I could give you a whole TED talk right now, but I'll make it quick. So first of all, let's understand what confidence is. Confidence is your belief in your ability to do something. That's all confidence is. And therefore, confidence is based on your past, because the only way you can believe you can do something is if you've already done it. So what I tell people is that discipline creates confidence. So when you are disciplined enough to prepare, and I tell people this as well, the number one key hallmark of a professional is preparation. A professional is always prepared before a situation occurs. So you as a speaker, Cody, I'm sure you practice what you're going to say before you get on the stage. That's the discipline. Discipline creates confidence. So the discipline of showing up, doing the work ahead of time, practicing your free throws before you get in the game. So when you get in the game, you know you can make the free throws. Doesn't mean you'll make every one, but you believe that you'll make it, which plays a big role in the ball going in the basket. So that's where the confidence starts, is the discipline. Now, most people understand the concept of discipline, but they don't have much of it. If you stopped 100 people on the street and said, do you want to be more disciplined at anything? Most people would laugh in spite of themselves and say, yeah, I need to go to the gym. I need to stop smoking. I need to stop drinking. I need to stop eating candy, whatever it is. Where does discipline come from? Discipline is not something that you force feed upon yourself. And this is the reason why many people fail at it, because they try to make themselves be disciplined, which is impossible. Discipline comes from structure. When you have the right structure in place and you follow the structure, discipline naturally flows out of it. And from that discipline, because you've done the work, now you have the belief, which is the confidence that you can go and do the thing. So structure creates discipline. Discipline creates confidence. Now, where does the structure come from? This is the reason why you go and get a coach. This is the reason why you join a mastermind. This is the reason why you have a trainer. This is the reason why you sign up for a course. Why? Because all of those entities represent what? Structure. The coach is going to tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. So if you just follow their structure, as long as you trust them, you will naturally have discipline come out of that. And that discipline leads to confidence, which is a belief in your ability to do the thing. So what people have to understand here, and I'll wrap up this answer, and we can talk about more if you want, but confidence is, or any process of achieving anything in life follows a 3-step process, which is being, then doing, then having. Most people focus on what they want to have, and then they go do stuff. And most people spend their entire lives in this cycle of doing stuff, or a do loop, like they say in computer programming. You do stuff. Did it get the outcome? No. Do more stuff, do different stuff, do it harder, do it earlier, do it faster, do it later, do more of it, triple down on it. And they don't get the outcome they want because they're not asking themselves the key question, which is who do I need to be? And the being is the way that you think, the way you look at yourself in the mirror, your internal posture, your external posture, your aura, the energy that you have that, again, people can feel without even talking to you. They can feel how you feel about yourself just by watching you walk down the street without ever speaking to you. Don't even know who you are. Being comes first, then the doing, then the having. But most people do this out of order, which is the reason why many people don't have what they want, such as confidence.
It's so interesting when you talk about discipline, because so many things aren't even skill-based. It's just like a give a shit based, or just do it, like even for yourself, regardless of whether or not you were saying something interesting, if you record a podcast every day for 8 years, you're going to have listeners, and so other people are like, oh, I want a podcast like Dre, I want to have 7.5 million downloads, but they don't want to record every day. You know what I mean? It so much comes down to that discipline. And I saw a thing on your website. Do you still get up at 3:45 a.m. every day?
Just did today. I think it was a little bit early. It was about 3:39 today.
Without an alarm?
No, I do use an alarm sometimes now because I have a 2-year-old son and he's in the bed and he's interrupting my sleep agenda. But I use a smart alarm. So it's like a 30-minute window.
Okay.
And then it'll anytime it feels like you're close, it'll wake you up during that window so you're not woken up out of a dream or something like that.
And so what does your morning routine look like, and why do you get up at 3:45 in the morning?
Well, it started with, I'll tell you, the first place it started was about 2006, Cody. So I had played a couple places professionally, but I was back home in the USA. I finally moved out of my parents' house. I had a studio apartment in Philadelphia called Presidential City, right on City Line Avenue. Anybody from the city knows where it is. And I was working at a gym. Now, this gym was called Philadelphia Sports Club, and it was downtown Philadelphia. So it was basically south of where I lived. Now, because I was a employee of the company, I could use the gym for free. But there was only one location in the city that had a basketball court indoors that I wanted to use. So I wanted to use the indoor court location, which was north of me, about 40 minutes north of me. Excuse me. So I had to be to work every day at about, I think, 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So I basically deconstructed the process. For me to get to work by 9 o'clock, driving from that gym that has the access to the indoor gym that I want, I have to be in the locker room, getting dressed and changing my clothes by this point. It means I got to be showering by this point. It means I got to get off the basketball court by this point. It means I got to get on the court at this point so I can get an hour in, which means for me to get to the gym at this time, I had to leave my house at this time. It means I got to wake up at this time. So I had to wake up at 4 in the morning. So the 4 in the morning thing started in 2006 because out of necessity.
Okay.
So that's when I started waking up at 4 in the morning to use that gym, practice, and use the gym for free. And then I got away from it a little bit when I wasn't doing that anymore. And I'm down here in Miami. And then I was at the gym in Miami that is not far from where I am right now. I would work out there every day. But what happened in the summertime, it was a month-long summer camp happening at the gym. And the summer camp started every morning at 7 a.m. The gym, Cody, opened at 6 a.m. And they told me, Dre, there's a summer, because they saw I would come every day. They said, Dre, there's going to be a summer camp here for a whole month. And it starts at 7 a.m. from 7 to like 5. So you can't be in there while they're doing the summer camp. I said, all right, well, how do I work around this? Okay, I'll just get an hour in before they start the summer camp. So I started getting to the gym at 6 a.m., waking up at 5. And then when I started waking up early every day, I realized that I like this. And then I started reading and hearing that they're one of the people who are successful. They wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They get things in early. And I remembered back to 2006 when I used to do that. And I said, why don't I just keep this up? So I've done it ever since, probably since 2000 and maybe 10. I've been getting up early, whether it was 4 or 5. Nowadays is before 4 o'clock. And it's just part of my natural habit now.
So what time do you go to bed?
I try to get in the bed by 7:30.
Oh shit. Okay. So yeah, you go to sleep early.
Yes,
Okay. So then you're obviously a writer. Are you an avid reader as well?
absolutely.
Have you
So
read Robin Shamara's 5 a.m. Club?
I don't think so.
That's a
Let me see if I have
great
it.
that's a great book. That I did that routine for a bit and then I fell out of it, but I was more productive definitively when I would get up early and start, because by the time I got to work at 9, it's like
Yeah,
I've already had
half
a
the day away.
successful day. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was so
So
far
why'd you
ahead of it.
stop?
Oh, I don't know. Probably,
Yeah,
I think
a
it
lot
was
of
like,
people say
I
that.
think it was like COVID. You know, it was like in 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it was because I was doing it, and I was doing I think it started 75 hard at that time, and then it got to like like March 13th, and everything went crazy, and I used that as an excuse
Right.
to just be lazy.
Okay. So the question you had asked me was about the what did you ask me? I forgot the
If you'd
question.
read 5 a.m. Club by Robin Shamara.
Oh yes. Oh, the reading. You're asking about
Yes.
reading.
Uh-huh.
So the reading thing, yes, I've always been a big reader and writer because, as I told you, my mother being an educator, we had books in the house. We had a set of encyclopedias back in the day. Again, millennials, that's like Wikipedia, but actual books. So, so when it came to reading, I always looked at when people would read audiobooks back like 2009, 2010, people would mention, well, now I read audiobooks. And I say that's cheating. That doesn't count to read. You're not reading an audiobook, you're cheating.
Yeah.
And nowadays, that's all I take in is audiobooks. Almost all audiobooks, 90% of books I read are audio, simply because I just don't have the time to sit and read the way I used to. And the good thing about audiobooks is you can put them on 2 or 3x speed. I can process very quickly if someone's a fluent English speaker. So I can get through a long book in like 2 hours of listening. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. I usually have at least one physical book I'm working on, but they take longer. But as far as reading, I try to read between books and courses. I try to consume 100 every year. So
Wow.
right now, I'm actually behind schedule. We're in the fall right now, almost in the fourth quarter. I'm only at about 66 for the year. So we'll see if I can make it, if I can sprint through the rest of 2024.
Do you count your audiobooks as one of those 100?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Even if I listen to the same book more than once, I count it.
Okay, and is there you have a top 3 list of like the books that have been the most impactful for you?
Sure. 3 would be limiting me. But let me see. Number 1, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. It's my favorite book of all time. Number 2, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. Another one very high up. That's a very long book, by the way. It's about 25 hours of
Oh
listening.
my
Even
gosh,
at,
Napoleon Hill's amazing though.
yeah, The Law of Success actually was a course, but then he made it into a book. So it's about 25 hours of listening at regular speed. And if I had to pick one more, I would go Robert Greene again. The 50th Law. That's a book that he co-authored with 50 Cent. He did most of the writing, but he used 50's story.
Yeah, Robert Greene's good. So,
Yeah,
would you say he's your favorite author then, Robert Greene?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were able to rip that list off pretty quick. Usually people got to think about it for a minute. Well, you're going to
I
have
got
to
to think about which ones to not tell you.
Yeah.
So.
You're going to have to check out Robin Shamara's 5 a.m. Club though. And he also wrote
I just saved it.
The Monk
That's
Who
it.
Sold His Ferrari is really good.
Okay.
And now I think the one I've got on my nightstand, I haven't started it yet, but I think it's The Wealth That Money Can't Buy. But he's an awesome author, really good storyteller, makes it easy to read. So I'm sure if you're listening, I think I don't do the audiobooks, but I think his would be the type that'd be really enjoyable to listen to because he's such a good storyteller.
The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Okay, I see that here. I'm pulling it all up on Audible. I just add them to the wish list and then I go and get them. And by the way, Audible needs to add a way that you can actually buy the book on their app. They don't let you, which makes no sense. I'm sure they lose a lot of money with this.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you put all your books on Audible too then?
Yes, I listen to most of them on Audible. I have over 1,000 books in my Audible library right now.
Oh wow! But I'm saying, like, of your 35 books that you've authored, do you put the audiobooks out there?
Yeah, everything's Audible.
I haven't done
we
that.
We got audio, digital, and physical. Everything.
How did you? Because it sounds like you were on the internet in the very beginning. Because YouTube came out in 2005, so it sounds like you were part of that in the beginning. Is that channel that you got your silver play button on? Is that the same one you started all the way back in 2005, or is that on a new channel? Oh, it is. Wow. Okay.
I only have one. I've tried to start some other channels, but then I changed my mind. So
yeah, because once you've already
I got a couple, I threw a few things on, but the main channel is still the main. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so, how many subscribers do you have on your YouTube channel?
About 140,000. But I feel like I'm pretty sure I've been shadow banned on YouTube for several years now. I don't know why or how, and don't know what to do about it.
Oh, that's so terrible.
Somebody has a solution. Help me out.
We had one for our company, and We
Yeah.
like tried to run ads for it, and then they just like took it away, and we just like lost it.
Yes, they took the channel away or the ads.
The channel, like it just now it's
They
back, but
deleted
it
it.
was gone for like almost a year. They just put us in jail. I don't know. It was weird.
Did they tell you?
No. Mm-mm.
So you just couldn't pull up. So if you
Yeah.
went to your channel URL, you just couldn't see anything.
Yeah, couldn't see it. And then just like last week, I stumbled across it, and I was like, oh, it's back. And so I was like, awesome.
Yeah. So that's the challenge that I tell people with all the social platforms is that you don't control it. It's land that you don't own, but we all want to use it because that's where all the eyeballs are. So that is like a catch-22. So yeah, with YouTube, I'm pretty sure that I've been shadow banned, but it is a great source of leads when it's working.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, everyone's on it. I went to a conference in Vegas called Grow with Video with Sean Cannell, and it was fascinating to learn like what you can do with all those different skill sets on YouTube, and how much I didn't realize until I'd gone how much of a platform YouTube really is.
Yes, it's TV.
Yeah.
It's TV. And that's where all the eyeballs are. And the good thing about YouTube is that people will watch long stuff on YouTube, whereas Instagram, TikTok is just swipe, swipe, swipe. So YouTube is great if you can get an audience there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it gives long form a real opportunity because we're so used to now digesting like 60-second clips that it's nice to get like a longer story in. A couple other questions I have for you. One that I like to ask all my guests is, what is the biggest win you've ever had in your life?
Biggest win ever? Probably making it as a professional athlete.
Yeah, how did that feel? Like when you signed that first contract, what was that? Like, can you take me back to that time, and what did that feel like for you?
Vindicating. It felt vindicating because I started playing when I was 14 and I signed my first contract when I was 23. So that 9 years, for most of that 9 years, there was something you could point to that said, well, how you're a basketball player, this part isn't working. So in high school, you're not on the team. Then when I played, sat on the bench. In college, yeah, you're on the team, but you're playing at this small school that nobody cares about. And even in college, there were some times when I wasn't on the team, so nothing was happening. And even players or students, let's say who were my classmates, say, oh, yeah, you're playing here, but it's not like you're going to the NBA playing here. You're not going to go pro playing here. And then when I got out of college, that whole year and a half after college, well, all right, you had basketball talent, but look at you now. You're working at Foot Locker. You're working at Bally Total Fitness. What are you doing with all that talent? So the entire time, from the time I started to the time I ended, it was always something you could obviously point to that said, this is doing nothing. So when I got my first deal, it was vindication of everything that I had done. And it's a kind of a sales thing that we talk about, the big domino. It rendered the entire past 9 years completely irrelevant because now I'm a pro.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because when you say that, it's like really 9 years is not a long time to like achieve a dream. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you start out and you're at day one of those 9 years, it's like it can be daunting, but that's pretty incredible to think about, and what an awesome thing. I mean, I can remember being a kid and being in my bed at night, and I'd pray and be like, God, let me be a professional basketball player. Like, please, like, what do I got to do? So that's so cool that you were able to actually accomplish that and then create a path for other people to follow. I'm curious, do you follow like the TBT, the basketball tournament?
I played in it.
Oh, you did? That's amazing. Yes. How many years did you play in the TBT?
Only once. It was at the tail end of my career. So it was in 2015. So I told you I stopped playing in 2015.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was pretty much out of the game by that point, and I was doing too many other things besides basketball. We lost the first game. So
that's some of my favorite basketball to watch, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because that is the purest, and you got to win. And honestly, I can look forward to it every year because I feel like when you watch those games, it is some of the best basketball that you can see.
It's great to watch, and it's great to. Have you been to a game?
No, I've not been to one.
Yeah, it's great to see even up front. I mean, they've gone to kind of bigger venues. They go to these college venues now.
Yeah.
I know that's where the money's at, so that's why they do it. And I talk to the people who run it, so I know not their whole thing, but I know what they're aiming for and why they've done what they've done. But they used to have it, because I'm from Philadelphia. So the year that I played was only the second year of the whole event. And that's when they would have a lot of the games at Philadelphia University in the city. Philadelphia University is a college, but it's a smaller college. So the bleachers where you sit and the court are not that far apart. So it's very intimate.
Yeah.
You could be right there on top of the players. And that's where I played when we lost. But then the subsequent years, maybe 16 and 17, I would travel to Philly in the summer and go to the games as a fan. So it was very fun then. but they're moving around to so many different places now. I haven't been to any games since.
Yeah, it's fun when you're in those small environments. The summer league, because I'm just an hour and a half from Vegas,
Yes.
so the summer league is there.
Yes.
And when
Similar.
they play
Yes.
in the, not in the big gym, UNLV's main gym, but like the smaller gym, you're right there
Right.
with the players. It's such a, and back then, because now all the big names, like the number one draft picks, they're always just playing in the Thomas and Mack. But when I
Right.
went, that was like the year Dwight Howard got drafted, and it's like I got to go up and talk to him after, because
Right.
you're just so close.
You can get
to
that
the,
close.
Yeah,
Right.
and that was
Yeah.
when the Nuggets signed Kenyon Martin, and he was there, and I'm a big Nuggets fan, so that was like a huge deal. Actually, I'm glad I just got on that subject because I got to ask you. I'm a huge Denver Nuggets fan, so what are your thoughts on Jokic?
Well, he's the best. I think right now, who won the championship last year? Boston. Excuse me. I think he's still the best player in the league right now. Nobody has taken that title from him. Now, they need to keep winning for him to hold on to that title. But I think right now, it's fair to say he is the best player in the NBA. And I hope that they can continue to compete because he's up there. I don't know, I felt like the team got a little bit worse since last year.
I mean, I think
So we'll
that
see.
Russell Westbrook is better than Reggie Jackson. So I think we upgraded there.
Fair enough.
And then Darko Saric, he's a perfect fit for us. He can be like a Jokic-esque bench player. So I think in a lot of ways, certainly like you don't want to lose KCP because he was just, he's like the glue guy and he does all the things you need to do. But now you've got a chance like a Christian Brown to get an opportunity. And Julian Strawther might be able to fit into that role good, but you can't diminish losing a KCP and a Bruce Brown the year before. But I do think that Russell is going to give us some leadership, and he's like, Russell's a dog, and Jokic and Murray are both quieter, and they're not going to lead in the same capacity like a Russell Westbrook will. So I think having someone of their caliber on our team and in the franchise is gonna be a positive thing for them. And then like we also lost Vlatko to his I can't remember what, he hurt his knee playing for his international team. And he's really a big fits a big role for us. So it'll be fun to see what it's like this year. The league is just so good. It's like every team is stacked. Like 1 through 12 in the Western Conference are all great teams, and any team can beat anyone on any given night.
Technically, yes, I agree with most of that. Now, with Russell, I wouldn't even consider him a leader anymore. I mean, he will be respected because of his resume.
Sure.
And there are certain things he is good at, but he is a terrible outside shooter and often inattentive defender. So he's a trick-or-treat guy. All right, there's some pluses, there are some minuses, but I understand the value of Russell because he attacks the rim all the time. He always plays hard. He rebounds very well. He's not going to be out there doing nothing. He's going to do something. He's going to be, one of my friends, we used to call these people a factor. He's a factor. He's either going to be a factor in making you win or a factor in making you lose, all right? One or the other. And as far as the rest of the team, those young guys, we'll see if they step up. That's what they were supposed to do last year. They didn't do it.
They did not. That's true.
So they, and Denver's kind of strapped they don't have money to make moves. So the kid, what's the kid, 6'10" kid, Porter, he has to step up. He's got to be a better player.
He's got to shoot
Murray
2
was
to
not
3 more
good
threes
last
a
year.
game. Yeah,
So Porter has to be a lot better. They're paying him like a max player. He's got to play like one.
Yep.
Murray needs to play better. He was a lot better when they won the title than he was last year. Last year, he was not very good.
He was not.
And how are they going to beat these other good teams in the West? The team that just beat them last year, how are they going to beat them? They got to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm hoping
Minnesota.
when I talk about Westbrook, it's really less on the floor. Like on the floor, he's better than Reggie Jackson for sure. But to your point, he's got his pluses and minuses. My real hope with him is like locker room leadership and pushing Murray to be that max. I mean, Murray should be able to be an all-star. So I'm hoping that Russell can get that like in the gym, in practice, going at Murray hard and challenging him.
That I can see. Murray needs to be. Murray needs to be an all-star. He needs to play like a top 20 player. He didn't do that last year, and they can't win if he doesn't.
And you can't waste having Jokic. I mean, in Denver, a market that no one naturally wants to be in, that's smaller. We are so lucky we got an international superstar who doesn't really care to where he lives, and so he's happy to just be there, and he's going to be with us. But it's like we can't squander that because just like Donovan Mitchell leaving the Jazz, when you're in a mid-market place like that and you've got a superstar, and if you're lucky enough to hold on to him like Denver is with Jokic, you got to capitalize. Because Jokic, to me, and LeBron in his prime, and even now he's 40 and he's still one of the best top 10 players in the NBA. But you could put LeBron in any team in the league, and then that team is now a favorite. And Jokic is that same way. You could put him on any team in the NBA, and he's going to completely change the makeup of that team. And so I just want to see the Nuggets do everything they can to maximize for Jokic, really, because when I watch him play, I'll laugh sometimes, like out loud, audibly, because I just can't believe what he's able to do on the court.
I agree with a lot of that. I got to check one thing. We can't compare Donovan Mitchell to Jokic.
No, of course not. But for the Jazz, he was their superstar, right? He was an all-star caliber player that didn't want to stay around. But yeah, certainly not to that same level.
So with Jokic, they can't, like you said, they can't squander him. He's not the kind of guy who's going to say, trade me. He's not, I don't think people who are born outside of America don't grow up with that mindset. Mitchell is from America. He has that mindset. LeBron has that mindset. Jokic is not like that. At least he doesn't appear to be. But they do have to figure out a way to maximize. I think worst comes to worst, Porter's got to get shipped out and they got to get pieces because they don't have any money.
Yeah, well, we need shooting. Like, that's what I'm most worried about. Right. The only three-point shooter that we really have is Porter. And Murray, he's salvageable, but like we need, with someone like Jokic, I would honestly just I would have just all got shooters.
Yeah,
I just would have all of them on the outside.
All shooters who can finish at the rim and play defense.
That's it. All 3 and D guys. That's all we need. So we'll see. It should be interesting. Okay, so back on subject. I could talk about the Nuggets for an hour.
Me too.
Back on subject. So we asked what your biggest win was. What's your biggest loss?
Wow, that's a great question. Biggest loss, I would say. I would say that, Cody, I haven't really suffered any super devastating loss. I would say it may be just an accumulation of things. For example, with basketball, I feel like I had started earlier. I would have been a better player. Maybe I would have made the NBA had I started earlier, but that's a cop-out answer. Let me give you a better one. I would say in business, I didn't start getting a real business education until a little bit later. I was already doing business stuff, selling products, making money before I really got a business education. But again, I don't even knock myself for that because not like nobody's telling you, hey, if you're going to do business, you got to get a business education. Nobody was saying that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I just wish that I had known sooner. So I would say the biggest loss for me is just the accumulation of elapsed time in ignorance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, hey, that's a first. We've never had an answer like that. I like it. And I'm actually curious too. So you talked about the NBA. Was there ever a time that you were playing overseas that you thought like, man, maybe I can make it to the league?
So if you look me up on YouTube, you had to look for this because it didn't go crazy. But I had this, I did this little campaign. It was called Sign Dre Baldwin, and it's hashtag Sign Dre Baldwin. And I did this whole campaign. This is about 2010, 2011. So this is almost the prime years that I'm playing, late 20s. And I had a hungry audience online. People are big fans of me. They're like, Dre, you should play in the NBA. You could play for my team. You're better than our backup point guard. People saying stuff like that. And I did this whole campaign where I would make videos. And I even went after, Daryl Morey, the GM. Uh-huh. At the time, he was the GM of the Houston Rockets. And it was known because he was on Twitter. And I made a video and I did the click to tweet. So if you click on this link, it would actually compose a tweet to go to Daryl Morey to say, hey, you need to sign Dre Baldwin to play for your team. And I got a bunch of my fans to go do it. And I'm sure Daryl Morey saw these tweets because he had to have gotten hundreds of them. Hey, sign Dre Baldwin. And he never responded. It didn't work. But for about 2 summers, Cody, I was cold calling. This is how I've gotten in games.
Yeah.
Cold calling people in the basketball front offices. So I would go to their websites and find the front office people, not like the GM, because you're not going to get them on the phone.
Yeah.
But like an assistant GM, head of player personnel, these random people who don't get cold calls. I was calling those guys and actually having conversations with them about getting me signed. And they would listen and talk to me and entertain the thought. But I never even made it to getting a summer league invitation. So that's as far as it went.
Oh, man. So obviously you believed you were good enough to be in the league.
Oh, yes. And I'm a good enough salesperson to draw enough attention to see if maybe it'll work that way.
I love to hear that grind. I think that's incredible. That is what it's about. If you really want something, you got to put in that work to get it. And so hearing stories like that is just incredible. And I'm a salesperson by nature. I mean, that's what my background is in. And very similar to you, like we'll make the call, like what's the worst they can say? Right. No.
Exactly.
And so I'm curious, who's your favorite player to watch in the NBA now? Like, who do you enjoy watching the most?
Who do I enjoy watching the most? I'm honestly, Cody, not a big fan of the current game, period. Not that the players aren't good. If I had to pick one player, I'm just trying to, it's been a while since the NBA, the whole season went by. Who was around? So we had Boston, you had New York, you had Denver. I might say Denver. I might say, that's a tough question. I might actually have to go with Jokic. I think he might be the one. And the thing is, Cody, it's not so much about how he plays. It's about a couple of things about players that I just don't like. I don't like when players don't play hard on defense. I don't like when players sit out games for rest. I'm completely against that concept. Fundamentally, I'm against it principle-wise. I don't like when players complain about the team that they're on as if they're not the star and the team's not built around them. That team's not succeeding and it's based on you because you're the guy. So on those reasons alone, I disqualify a whole bunch of players.
Sure.
So that's why I like Jokic, because he doesn't do any of that, and he's actually very good at what he does. Other players who are equally talented, but there's a lot of the mindsets that I feel like a lot of these players have grown up with. I'm just not a fan of.
Yeah, Jokic is all about basketball. In fact, they had their media day yesterday, and they said, Jokic, it's your 10th year doing a media day. Like, what do you think? And he's like, I think it's the same every year. I don't know why we do this. He doesn't want to be at a podium with a microphone. He wants to be in the gym. I love it. Okay,
right.
so then
my favorite player to watch is Michael Jordan. I watch his old YouTube videos.
Oh my gosh, they're so good. I had the VHS like set of like all of his different highlights,
I had those.
Man, and even now, like I'll show my son and he's just like, the way that he played back then, it was, oh man, he's poetic. Okay, so final question for you, Dre, and I'll let you get on with your day, but how do you define success?
How do I define success? Well, it's pursuit of a worthy ideal. So I mean, knowing what you want to achieve, and you are making steady, measurable progress towards that outcome. That is success.
I love that, because you're talking about the journey of getting there versus the destination, right? Because I think we can hang our hat.
When you're in the process, you are successful.
Right. We can hang our hat on a destination or a place or a thing, but then once you get there, you got so much more life to go, So like you can't ever reach it, right? Even when you signed your first NBA contract, it's not like you were able to professional contract, to just relax. You had to keep grinding in order to keep playing for another 9 years. You're always in the journey of it.
Yeah, so you have to be ready. Once you sign the contract, now you got to be ready to live up to it, or otherwise they'll cancel it.
Yeah, you got to perform. Well, Dre, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I absolutely loved it. If our listeners are interested in learning more from you or connecting, what's the best way for them to do that?
Thank you, Cody, for sharing your platform, for the opportunity. And best way to connect with me is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the place where that's where all our focus is right now. That's our coaching, our courses, masterminds, all of our consulting, all of that happens under the wing of Work on Your Game University. Okay,
perfect. Well, I will put that in the show notes. So if you're listening, you're driving, when you get to your destination, you can pull that website up. Dre, thank you again so much. It was a pleasure. I loved it, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
These were great questions, Cody. I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much.